Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
And guys, we got to open up the show with obviously we're super excited about that Pistons comeback victory in round one against the Orlando Magic to come back from 3-1 to take the series. But, honestly, they went down 3-1 and Blake, I know we kind of chatted. I didn't want to record. I mean, we got a question here that we'll talk about later on about, kind of like good luck charms, things that we try to do because we are fans of the team. And look, as much as we try to be neutral, we are fans of the Pistons. And I'll just be honest with you guys up front. When they went down 3-1, I wanted no business talking Pistons. I needed a break. I wanted to just wait till the series was over. And then they won game 5, and I'm like, okay, they got the game 5 little bounce back at home, but we'll see. They got to go win in Orlando. And then they get that crazy comeback in the second half against the Magic in game 6. And at that point, guys, I just didn't want to jinx it. We hadn't recorded. So I figured we'll just wait this out. So, it's like, I get, kind of my fault, kind of our fault there. But look, whatever we did, it worked. The Pistons won. They came back. So sorry we weren't with you through round one up to the end here. But man, what a series.
Well, our last episode was after game 3 when the Pistons were down 2-1. And my prediction was that they were still going to win the series. If we recorded after game 4, I definitely would have had a different prediction. I was not feeling good, even going into game 6 and especially at halftime of game 6. But I mean, honestly, what a historic comeback. Honestly, I know the Pistons did the same thing against the Magic 20 years ago, and Philly came back from down 3-1. So I had 2 3-1 comebacks in the first round is pretty incredible to watch, and just the Pistons being a part of it. As a fan of the team, it definitely hurts. What a roller coaster of a series. And we were all looking ahead to the off season, but this team is still playing postseason basketball, and we're recording ahead of round 2 against the Cavaliers, where it's 0-0, start fresh. Hopefully they don't dig themselves in a similar hole, because how difficult would it be to get out of that twice? The Nuggets actually did that a couple of years ago. So it's not impossible, but hopefully this group learned a lesson, and playoff basketball is tough, but hopefully they can set a different tone to start this next series here.
And we're going to talk about some takeaways from round 1, just kind of chronicling what happened there to allow the Pistons to make that comeback. But I just kind of want to start here, Blake, because honestly, the happiest thing that I've got out of this round 1 series is that the Pistons' first 60-win year in however many years, the Pistons' best season in however many years, right? They're all throughout the regular season. You keep seeing Cade Cunningham in statistics with Billups and Isaiah and Dumars, right? You keep seeing the team up there with, the most wins in a row since the Going to Work team, since the Bad Boys, right? They kept setting these records and appearing up on these lists, and it was an incredible regular season. And now it doesn't end up with them being a negative statistic again. That was what I was so upset about when they fell down 3-1. I kept thinking to myself, oh my God, the best year in who knows how long, the best team that this group has had in who knows how long. And then they go down as one of the, however many teams to be upset as a 1 seed by an 8 seed. And then they avoided that. So I'm very, very grateful. Even today, I wake up every morning after this series, and I'm grateful for that. I want to give you a little bit of trivia here, Blake. Do you know who the last team the Pistons beat in a playoff series before round 1 here this season? I'll give you a hint. It was in the year that they went all the way to the conference finals near the tail end of the Going to Work season, and then they lost to the Celtics.
It was in 08.
Yeah. 07, 08.
Oh boy, I think it was the Cleveland Cavaliers.
It was the Magic.
Oh, that was my other guess, but I thought we
was
were
the
looking
Magic.
ahead. Okay.
Oh, so I don't know. All the focus obviously was on the 3-1 comeback mirroring, right, game to game to game, and that was hilarious. And then I found that the last time the Pistons even won a playoff series was against the Magic. So clearly, this was just an homage to the going to work team, right? I mean, they go down 3-1 for the narrative. They come back, they win it in the same way that they did with Cade doing his best Chauncey Billups there in Game 7, and then they also get to beat the Magic again, just like they did back in 2008. So the only downside of all this is they don't have a chance of going and beating Boston to get revenge on that series. Oops, sorry, Boston. I had to throw that one in.
That was the Dwight Howard Magic years. And I want to say, I need to look it up, but the Magic have lost in the first round 3 years in a row. And obviously we see that they part with Jamal Mosley the day after the series ended, but I'm trying to look up quick. Yeah, the Magic haven't gotten out of the first round since 2010. So both these teams are in a similar boat, and the Magic went to the finals in 2009 with Dwight Howard. So a little more recent success, but two teams that have not been successful in the playoffs for nearly 2 decades. And hey, the Pistons get the monkey off their back a little bit. I mean, this team is obviously super young and getting playoff experience and everything, but just happy for like all the fans and everyone that was around in the Andre Drummond years. And we can go down the list of players, but it's been a long time coming, and to get a Game 7 in Detroit and a dominant performance, really, it's just great to see all around, and hopefully the momentum can continue.
So this is a great comment here from Richard in the live chat. It says having to fight back from down 3-1 was great growth for the series for the core, and Cade's performance throughout the series validates the regular season and cements him as a superstar. So let's just dive right in. What are some of the bigger takeaways here from round one? I mean, obviously we all know, right? They fall down 3-1. They're struggling through those first 4 games. Even in Game 2, where they did win that game at home, we talked about it, right? They didn't really look like themselves. And honestly, I don't think they even really looked firmly like themselves in Game 5 when they pulled out that win at home. I don't think this looked like the 60-win team that we have seen all season long until the final 6 quarters of round 1. So in the second half, when they're making that incredible 23-point comeback, and then in the entirety of Game 7, that looked like the dominant team that we've seen all season. So what happened? What switch got flipped? Why were they? What allowed them to turn it on there on those last 6 quarters?
You know, I'm going to go back even a little further to Game 5. I think that is really all the credit goes to Cade Cunningham. I mean, Tobias Harris had a great game, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more with what he did throughout the series and in Game 7 in particular, but down 3-1 facing a first round exit in 5 games at home, you need your superstar to dominate. And in a game where Paolo Banchero is going off and he scores 45 points and he can't really miss, he's having a great night from the field. Cade Cunningham goes blow for blow with him. He scores 45 points of his own. And even though him and Paolo were neck and neck with each other, Cade was able to control the game, turn it on in the second half, in the fourth quarter, and really gave the team that performance that they need to keep things going when the series wasn't going their way, and still wasn't going their way into Game 6. And then moving ahead, like into Game 7, I think we saw some of the storylines to start the series. I mean, I think I want to go to Jalen Duren just because he was a huge talking point to start the series, and your all-star center isn't really showing up and what's going on there. what game 7 wasn't the best game that we've seen from Jalen Duren, but he had 15 points and 15 rebounds. He just had 9 shots from the floor. I think you and I both would say that we want him to be a little bit more aggressive, get more than that, but he was able to do what we've seen from him at times. It wasn't a full 48 minutes or anything like that, but what he gave the Pistons, I thought, was pretty big after the series that he's had. And then you couple that with 30-point nights from Cade and Tobias, and really that's it right there. But I was at least happy to see a pretty strong game out of Duren in game 7, and hopefully he can continue that into the second round.
I was really happy to see that as well. I mean, it seemed like from game 4 onwards, Jalen Duren was getting more and more comfortable. Like you said, I don't think he was all the way to the level that he was in the regular season yet. But I think that the progression, the arrow is pointing upwards. And as Jacob Ball here in the live comments points out, I mean, these guys are all incredibly young. I mean, Jalen Duren's 22 years old, and this is really his first playoff series with expectations. We kind of talked about that on the last episode. So, like, I think that he's kind of figuring it out. And honestly, you point out Cade Cunningham. Absolutely. I want to shout out Tobias Harris as well, because I think that this turnaround comes from the top down, and part of the top is Cade Cunningham, your superstar, the best player on the court, going out and having that 3-game stretch or 4-game stretch that he did, or no, sorry, 3-game stretch that he did to close out this series and win it in 7 from that 45-point performance. And then I think actually down the stretch there, he averaged 36 points. Like he has been unbelievable. He couldn't miss from 3. You couldn't go underneath on those screens. He really was just picking the Magic apart. But how about Tobias Harris, one of the veteran leaders in the locker room, one of the guys that all of these younger players look up to and look for advice, just in life in general. Amari and others have written great pieces on that. I mean, Tobias Harris really is to the full extent of the word, leader in the locker room. And he called this team out. What was that, after game 5 when they got their win? And he said that they've been a little too casual to the media. He went and said that they've been a little too casual, that they didn't come in with the right mindset here into the playoffs. And with Tobias, if he's saying that to the media, he has said that and some right to the locker room. And you know what he did the rest of the way? He walked the walk, right? He said that. And then he comes out and he plays like the second star on this team that they needed. And while he's not supposed to be that guy, I think he knew that he needed to step up until Jalen Duren could kind of retake the mantle. And he went and did it. And he played with that energy and intensity. I loved how every time he'd go and get an and one, he went over to the bench, high-fived everybody out on the bench, and was talking to all those guys as well. Like, this is some of the best playoff performance we've ever seen out of Tobias Harris in his career. Right. And it's great that he's doing it in Detroit. But I just think that the leadership that shows to recognize what's going on, what's going wrong through the first 4 games, to come out in game 5, play pretty well, and then send a message like that to your team in the locker room, send a message every single game after that, set the tone. I mean, that's what freed everyone else up. Because Cade had been playing pretty well. I know the turnovers were what they were, but he was still scoring the ball fairly well. He was still taking on the offensive load. It was when Tobias Harris really, really turned it up a notch that I think this went into a totally different direction. So I want to give him all the credit in the world.
Well, yeah, we talked about the last time we recorded. I mean, Jalen Duren he's averaging about 10.5 points in the postseason compared to 19.5 in the regular season. How are the Pistons going to make up for that difference? Tobias Harris is averaging 21.6 points per game over the playoffs thus far. So that's up. He averaged like 13.5 during the regular season. So that's a +8 right there. He's currently scoring more than OG Anunoby, James Harden, Julius Randle, Karl Anthony Towns. I could go on and on of the list of like players that like Tobias Harris shouldn't really be in that threshold at this point in his career, but the Pistons needed someone to step up. And all the way back to when he signed that contract that a lot of people weren't happy with to return to the Pistons, a lot of what we were talking about was like, okay, maybe it's a bit of an overpay, but this team needs a veteran presence who is available and can sort of just keep things calm when things are hitting the fan. And that's exactly what he did. And then some. I mean, part of me wonders how sustainable it is. Like, you're not going to get 21 points from Tobias Harris every night. You're certainly not going to get 30 points from him every night. But if he can just be that guy while Duren continues to get used and get his like feet under him or whatever's going on, I mean, that's just an incredible swing factor. And like, I mean, honestly, like Cade's definitely one of the reasons that the Pistons won the series, but like Tobias Harris is the reason to me.
I totally agree. We got a great voicemail here from a fella looking back at some more reactions here from that round one game or series.
Hey, this is a fella from the DDB comments. Y'all, we just won a playoff series. But question for you, what's the recap? What are your thoughts, especially in regards to JB Bickerstaff, the rotations, the coaching, the strategies? I just want to know, what do you think of how JB coached that series as a whole? And two, what do you think things are going to be moving forward? Do you expect a change in rotations? Maybe we might see some familiar faces. Maybe we'll see some people that we hadn't seen. I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. Looking forward to hearing you guys on the pod, and you have a great day.
All right, Blake. So we've been given some reactions to round one in general, but let's focus on JB Bickerstaff a little bit here. Obviously, just gets the contract extension. Unknown how long that was. I think he had 2 more years on his deal anyway, so it wasn't like they were up. But, you know, I mean, he wins that round one series. His leadership has totally turned around this team over the past couple of seasons. So a well-earned extension there. What did you think out of the strategic decisions he was making in round one? And maybe what do you think might change here going into round two against the Cavs?
Yeah, I mean, credit to JB, obviously, because what he did worked. Obviously, a lot of that is the players too, and he just stuck with what was working. I mean, I think totally different conversation if the Pistons are at home right now. Like, I mean, I'm a little confused as to what's going on with Isaiah Stewart right now. I think that part of it was Paul Reed sort of flipped the game in game 6 and gave some great energy. And then other than Javonte Green and Dennis Jenkins, no bench player got more than 10 minutes in game 7. Cade Cunningham plays 39 minutes, Jalen Duren 37. Like, Asar Thompson had the lowest amount of minutes in the starting lineup, and he played 34 minutes. So I think it is a tightening of things, but I would have, I did not expect Isaiah Stewart to get less than 10 minutes in 2 playoff games, I guess. And I mean, I do understand a bit because of how dominant Asar Thompson has been defensively, really. And he deserves all the credit in the world. And the offense was struggling a bit, and Stewart wasn't giving you a lot on that end. So I think there are some things that you can nitpick, like, does Paul Reed even need more minutes? Does Ron Holland need to be in the rotation somewhat? So I think there are some like nitpicks for me, but I think just overall through the series, we saw JB go to relying on his guys, leaning more into just the main players who've got them there. Obviously, Isaiah Stewart has played a big role. And like, if Dennis Jenkins isn't making shots in game 7. I don't think he's getting 29 minutes. So I think we've really just seen JB stick with what's working on the floor and mainly just tighten things up overall, which I think is the right decision in the playoffs.
And then just to get a little more specific, like I think that he made 3 kind of strategic rotation decisions that I thought were really smart in this series. The first was that he took Cade Cunningham, and Cade had been getting, 38, 39, 40 minutes a game, pretty much this entire series. But he started to chunk it into shorter bursts. Like he pulled Cade earlier in the first quarter and started maximizing, like he'd pull Cade a little bit before halftime, trying to maximize some of the breaks that he was getting. Because I think you did see through the first 4 games, he was getting a little fatigued, a little tired, which is totally understandable given that he's coming back from that collapsed lung, right? So it's incredible to me that he averaged as many minutes as he did through round 1. So I think that just made it a little bit more manageable for Cade to get to the minute low that he was, kept his legs and his cardio a little bit fresher later into the game, which was a really smart move. I do think that going and leaning into Danis Jenkins was actually really smart. And there was no indication that was the right move either, by the way, when he really started to make that turn. I mean, Karis LeVert didn't play a minute in game 7. Karis LeVert, we talked about it. The Pistons also talked. He played well in short bursts, and Danis Jenkins had been struggling through the majority of this series, but in game 6 and 7, it was Danis Jenkins getting the nod, and Danis played very well. He stepped up to the moment. JB had faith in him, and Danis ended up paying that off. So I thought that was a really shrewd move. And then, of course, we got to give him credit for going to Paul Reed in game 6 to start the second half. Well, not to start, but as the first big sub in the second half, because that injection of energy, for whatever reason, was just really what that team needed in that moment. But all that said, like I think all this strategy stuff aside, because he did do that well, to me, the biggest thing that JB Bickerstaff did and the biggest indicator of success from the coaching that this series showed us was just his demeanor, the way he held the line of what he expected out of this group, and he forced them or coaxed them, however you want to frame it, to step up and meet it. I mean, when they were down 24 points going into halftime in game 6, he wasn't demonstrative. He wasn't screaming on the sidelines any more than he usually is. It was a steady performance coaching wise, and I think that was really what the team needed. It's hard to give JB Bickerstaff enough credit for what he's done in this locker room over the past 2 years. You can't say enough about it. The way that this team has recovered from being coached by Monty Williams, the crazy losing streaks, how terrible it all got. And I know that they, in that locker room, they kind of, came into themselves, right? They started to trust one another, figuring that they were going to be able to push through it and figure out a way. But ultimately, it's JB and the staff that he brings in that really starts to right the ship, right? At least in terms of the vibes in the locker room. And I think he gets credit for this whole period, this entire turnaround. And I think you got to give him credit for that again here with the demeanor that he had, the leadership that he had with this team being down 3-1, to have the confidence and instill that confidence in this young group that they are who they were all year long, and they just need to play like it. And they did. And, obviously the rest is history now.
Yeah. And I mean, JB has definitely caught his fair share of flack for how he's handled the playoffs in the past, and I think he was getting that throughout the series, and probably there's still a bit of nitpicking you could do like I just did, but overall to hold things firm, like you said, and keep your guys believing. And I think a lot of that is credit to the players too, especially such a young group, for not thinking they were out until they were out. Because when you're down 22 at halftime with 24 minutes left in your season facing elimination, like, hey, I almost wanted to flip the game off. I know a lot of people that probably did at that point, and none of those guys just mailed it in and was like, all right, we'll come back next year stronger, whatever. They dug in and found a way to play great defense. Yeah, Orlando missed a lot of shots, but a lot of that was in part to how the Pistons played them as well. So I think, it starts at the top down. Like if your coach doesn't believe, like how are you going to believe? So I think JB deserves a ton of credit for just making things work in this series overall. Like, frankly, I'm still not sure how it did work. But the Pistons are in the second round and the Magic are at home. So I think you couldn't be more thrilled after he signs that contract extension too. And it's definitely well-deserved.
All right, real quick, before we get to another question, you mentioned wanting to turn that game off in Game 6. I did too. So I'm curious your reason why you didn't. My reason why that I didn't, I'm wondering if anyone listening to the show that you can relate to this. I was just sad. I'm looking at the second half, it's coming up, and I know, and I just felt like 100% sure, as justifiably you would, that this is the last half of Pistons basketball I'm going to get to watch until September or October. And that was just, it's like I have to watch because I need to have the funeral, like I need to mourn this. I need to get my last little bit of Pistons basketball before we go into a long off season. And that's the only reason I kept the game on. I had no hope left, man. I was just sitting there like this is better than the nothingness of the next few months. That's the only reason I had it on. How about you?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have a less fun reason. It was just I was working, and honestly, at that point, I was preparing some Pistons off-season content. So that can at least be on the shelf for a little bit longer, which is nice. So maybe credit to myself for starting to think that way and inspiring that comeback.
You turned it around.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like solely on me. But I do have some friends who were like fully turned it off, and they were like, okay, whatever I did is working. I'm not going to watch the rest of this. And hey, I have a friend who didn't even watch Game 7 because he turned it off at halftime and was like, I don't want to be bad juju. So yeah, so all the playoff superstitions are alive. I love it. Things were not good at halftime of Game 6. For some reason, they were good in the Pistons locker room, and something flipped there. So it's still incredible. I'm still in disbelief, honestly. But it was just awesome to watch. Like this is a series that you're going to remember for some time, even if it wasn't the first series that this team won in nearly 20 years.
Real quick, Blake, can you check me on this? My computer's being slow on my end, but quarter to quarter, right, over the last 3 games, I believe the only quarter the Orlando Magic won was the second quarter of Game 6.
It was they also won the first quarter of Game 7, but by first 2 points. Game 7
by 2, right?
Yeah. So
otherwise, that's it, right?
Yep. Exactly.
What a dominant stretch.
Yep.
I don't think we've really called that out yet. They really did. The Pistons did. When they took control, they took control. I know that Game 6 quarter 2 was as bad as it was, and now it looks like an anomaly, which is great, which it didn't feel like it that at the moment. But to win, whether it be 10 out of 12 quarters, down 3-1 to go clinch the series, that's incredible.
Yeah, and until the fourth quarter of Game 7, the Magic didn't have a 30-point quarter since the second quarter of Game 6. So it really, yes, again, a lot of that is the Magic going cold at the wrong time, but it is a lot of credit to the Pistons as well. And when the Magic scored 30 in the fourth quarter, the Pistons scored 33. The game was over at that point. So really this team at halftime of Game 6 just held their opponent to crazy lows of offense for the rest of the series that mattered, which is just amazing. Obviously it's not the first 3-1 comeback. I think it is the first for the Pistons. Oh wait, no, it's not, because they did the same thing against the Magic the last time. But yeah, it was just like, it was just special to watch, because honestly, I barely remember that last Magic series and just how down and out you feel like this team is, and suddenly they're not, is just a spectacle. I hope they don't find themselves in that situation again, but it was at least fun to watch now that we're on the other side and know the outcome.
Yeah, and Richard brings up a good point before we move on to the next topic, but he says, I knew that they were fully in Orlando's heads when De Silva pump faked a wide open three in the middle of the third quarter in that last game. And look, I just want to say this, because the Magic, we got to give them credit. They're a really good team. I don't want to in any way kind of like, I don't know, devalue what they did through those first 4 games. And they really, like Cade said at the end of Game 7, they pushed the Pistons here. So we got to give them a great amount of credit. But I only bring this up to say, the Magic are a really young team too. They're a really young team, just like the Pistons are. So all the stuff that everyone was talking about nationally on Pistons podcast, we were talking about it after Game 3, about how the Pistons are so young. This is kind of their first time with expectations, and it seemed like they were shriveling up a little bit. The weight of the world felt like it was on their shoulders, and they just weren't rising up to meet it. Well, as soon as the Magic went up 3-1, now they had the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they're a really young team. And you know what? It's just human nature. You could feel it. If you're a neutral fan, right, just an NBA fan watching that second half of Game 6, it was tangible. You could feel it. The Magic were tight because they saw the Pistons coming back. They thought they had won the game at halftime. And just the Pistons turn the screws a little bit. The defense tightens on up, and all of a sudden, those shots that you were making, they weren't as easy as before. And now, when you're not making those shots, now you're seeing the team that you thought you beat. They're coming back. It's a historic comeback. You lose the lead. Now everyone's missing open shots, even when we're good shooters. And you come into Game 7, and sure, you respond a little bit in the first quarter, but then the Pistons do it again in the second. They're young. It's the same story that we were saying about the Pistons. The Pistons just kind of flipped it on its head, and I don't think that it's nothing that as soon as the Magic go up 3-1, it's the Pistons that have nothing to lose. And now that's when we start to see them playing like themselves again. Whereas the Magic early on, those first 4 games, they had nothing to lose. And all of a sudden, when they got the expectations, now they're looking like a shell of their former selves. Like I get the whole Franz Wagner injury thing, and he's a great player. But really, I think that's the narrative. If I'm a Magic fan, that's what I'm taking out of this. It's, man, they had those expectations, and they kind of, unfortunately, just kind of shriveled up on it. They weren't ready for it because they are just so young, and they'll be better off for it. I think that they're going to be a great team next year as well, especially if they can get Wagner healthy for more than, like, what did he play, 38 games? I think they're well set up for the future is kind of what I'm saying. I'd give them the same eulogy that I would have given the Pistons. They're a young team that, they got to the playoffs, suddenly they had expectations, and they just couldn't rise to meet it, but they will in the future, because you'll make a lot of money betting on young players to figure the playoffs out at some point, and I'm sure the Magic will too.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that second half of Game 6, where the narrative is like the Magic scored 19 points and they were 4 for 37 in the field. Orlando was still up by 9 entering the fourth quarter, and so obviously from there, Orlando goes 1 of 20 from the field. Like, it was honestly astounding to watch. And the one field goal they had was a Paolo Banchero dunk with like 2.5 minutes left in the game. And by that point, the Pistons were already up by double digits. So, like, yes, the expectations came into play there, and they were super cold and getting pressured by this Pistons defense. But Detroit basically held them without a jumper in the fourth quarter when they were down by nearly double digits with just 12 minutes left with their season on the line. and they essentially win that game handily. So it was just an incredible reversal of fortunes that like I cannot remember in recent memory. I don't think we'll see a shooting performance like that again. And also I kind of wonder if there was something up with that rim because the Pistons struggled in the first half, but that's neither here nor there. But it was just wild to see. And obviously at that point, Detroit got all the momentum and really just took care of business in Game 7 like they needed to do.
All right, let's use this question here in our live chat from Richard to start to shift our focus into round 2 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, and we'll do this to talk about Jalen Duren. So we already brought this up. You said he had 15 and 15, right, in Game 7. Richard agrees. He looked much more comfortable, Jalen Duren did, in that Game 7. But he also says that Orlando was a bad matchup for him in the regular season as well. And that's kind of true. But where I kind of want to take this is, why was this such a tough out in round 1 for Jalen Duren? Setting aside the pressure thing for now, like just defensively, what did the Magic present to Jalen Duren that made it so difficult for him to get going and for him to get comfortable? And can the Cavs do the same thing? Do they have the tools to make his life just as difficult? Because to Richard's point, Jalen Duren has played very well this season in 4 games against the Cavs. He had a couple of nice games against the Magic during the regular season. But against the Cavs, he has consistently been a problem for them. Gotten to the free throw line a ton. Omari just wrote this in his preview as well. So go check that out if you guys haven't. But what did the Magic do? And then can the Cavs do it as well?
So I think a bit of what the Magic did to neutralize Jalen Duren for the great majority of this series was, I mean, a lot of it was Wendell Carter stealing his lunch a bit and looking like the more dominant big man for a lot of the series until Jalen Duren was able to have a nice game in Game 7. Part of that goes into, I mean, obviously Carter was just aggressive defensively and was playing really well. On the other end of the floor, he's able to space a little bit, which we all know gives Jalen Duren some problems. I think another element of that is Orlando has great wing defenders, perimeter defenders. Franz had a great series defensively until he went down. Same with Paolo, Suggs, Anthony Black. Like, you can go down the list with them. So I feel like whoever plays the Pistons, we know they're trying to target Duncan Robinson. If they have a floor spacing big, they'll try to take advantage of Jalen Duren that way. Or if it's a dominant center, like force him into bad decisions or fouls near the rim. Like, the Pistons didn't really have that luxury with the Magic, I felt like. And I think that went into Jalen Duren's struggles a bit because he just didn't have as much opportunity. And then going into the Cavs, like, I think the simple reason why he may have had more success against the Cavaliers is like the Pistons are able to target some defenders on that team. They have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, both of which are good defenders who match up positionally with Jalen Duren. I think it helps that Jared Allen doesn't space the floor. Evan Mobley can, but he struggled in the first round. So I think just the fact that we might see Jared Allen and Evan Mobley need to go into help a bit more based on like helping guard Cade will just open things up a bit more for Jalen Duren, which is why I think he had more success against Cleveland in the regular season and can continue to have more success against Cleveland, at least compared to Orlando in the postseason.
Yeah, just to kind of build on that, right? Like the Magic, they really focused on that 2-man game between Cade and Duren. They wanted to shut that down. They wanted to make Cade basically score for himself a little bit more. That was kind of that was their one big defensive focus. And they did that by packing the paint. Yes, but we've talked about it. The Pistons have had the paint packed against them defensively all season long. So to me, what was different about the Magic was just that physically they are big and they are strong. Even Desmond Bane, he is thick. He is difficult to post up against because he is a strong base. He is built like a brick truck, right? Like you cannot move Desmond Bane. So what Orlando was doing was, one, they have very athletic wing and guard defenders. So between Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner, even to an extent Jamal Cain, like if they go over the screen on Cade. If they went under it, they tried to recover, but Cade ended up punishing them on. So they tried to go over, and they could recover because they were so quick. So they'd be able to hustle back out in front. But in order to give that guy time to do that, they had Wendell Carter kind of stick a hand over, try to hedge a little bit, play two, and they pull the guy over from the corner and just hip check the crap out of Jalen Duren. And that just slows down his momentum. The Cavs they can try, but physically they don't have Apollo, who's 6'10", 250 something, to get in Jalen Duren's way. They don't have Desmond Bane, who's 6'3", 230 probably. I mean, he's really built, really strong guy. You could go up and down that Magic roster. They are physically very strong, very difficult to move. And I think when you turn your attention to Cleveland, it's much harder to find players that, not that they can't get physically overpowered, because even in this round one series, Duren was physically overpowering Wendell Carter Jr. now and again. He was physically overpowering a mismatch. It was just that the Magic were coming in waves, and every one of those waves was almost as physically strong as the first. So like, it's one thing to beat the one guy, but then Jalen Suggs comes around and, you know, rips at the ball when you're low, when you got the ball low, and when you come up with it, he can meet you up top too, and he's also difficult to move. Like, I just don't think that the Cavs have that kind of ability. I don't think that outside of Jarrett Allen, they really have anybody that plays all that strong physically. I mean, Evan Mobley historically has been very movable. Even going back a couple of years, like Asar Thompson's had a decent amount of success against Evan Mobley because Evan Mobley can't post him up. That's why I'm not like too worried. I am worried. I think Evan Mobley's a problem in this series, but I'm not too worried that it's not something that Tobias Harris can at least put up a fight against, because he just put up a fight against Paolo Banchero, who's much stronger. And if you can remember the last year, Tobias did an admirable job against Karl Anthony Towns, who again is kind of like, while he's a bit physically stronger, he's not he's kind of in the same mold in a way as Evan Mobley, a little bit more finesse, a little less power. You go up and down the road. Dean Wade's not the most strong guy. And then when you look at the guards as well, like James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, even to an extent like Jalen Tyson, who's going to be able to get over a screen and recover as quickly as a Jalen Suggs? I struggle to see it. So I think that the Cavs are much more of a funnel everything to your Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley type team. And that plays much more to the Pistons' advantage because their whole attack is downhill anyway. So what the Cavs are going to allow you to do is actually turn the corner. And now Cade can play 2-on-1, where he just wasn't able to really do that as much against the Magic, because the Magic were getting guys in the way of Duren to the extent that it was actually kind of a 1-on-2 without being able to find any space inside. So I think that's what Orlando did. And I don't know, do you agree? I don't see the Cavs being able to employ that same defensive strategy to the amount of success that the Magic did. I think that they might try. I just don't, like, what are they going to have Dean Wade try to chase Cade around with the ball in his hands and then have Evan Mobley get in Duren's way off of a SAR? But you wouldn't want Mobley on a SAR.
Yeah.
So probably Harden trying to check. Like, I just don't, I struggle with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the simple answer for me is Cleveland just isn't as strong of a defensive team, and they're certainly not as deep defensively. Like, I think Jalen Tyson is, I mean, Keon Ellis too, I think Jalen Tyson is probably their best option, but he comes off the bench, and Keon Ellis hasn't really been playing. I'm not sure if he's hurt or something. So they're not going to start Tyson. So that leaves exactly what you said. Like, they don't have a Jalen Suggs, a Desmond Bane in their starting lineup to help defensively, or like I think Anthony Black is a better perimeter defender than Tyson is coming off the bench. So I just think it like this team simply isn't built to guard around the perimeter. They have some interesting depth pieces who can help with it, but they're not getting a ton of minutes. This team is built to be able to score at a high rate, and then they're able to play a bit down low, but that like front court isn't going to help on Cade. So I feel like Cade's going to have a much easier time against Cleveland, although he had like a 45-point game, a 39-point game, a 32-point game against Orlando. So, but yeah, I think there'll be more wiggle room for him to like do what he wants and take advantage of matchups, which subsequently I think will help Duren, because they're going to need to rely on Allen and Mobley down low to help and just free up Duren near the rim, hopefully.
All right, let's get to this one from Gregory Wagner here in the DBB comments. Says, what Cavs fans seem to fear the most is taking away Donovan Mitchell's drives and making him a jump shooter. So do you think we should put Asar Thompson on Mitchell or on James Harden? So what do you think the matchups off the tip are going to be here for the Pistons?
Yeah, I mean, I think where you start is putting Asar on Donovan Mitchell. I think it's just simple for me that he's like, James Harden can score, and obviously he's still one of the best playmakers in the league. But I think Donovan Mitchell is just the biggest threat for them offensively. So I would put Asar on that guy. And then we all know where the Cleveland's going to try to get Duncan Robinson and switches and target him and everything. So I think he's going to be matched up with Dean Wade. And then that leaves Cade on Harden for me, or you can do Tobias, but like you're going to want Tobias on Mobley. Like you're not going to put Tobias on Harden and then leave Cade to cover one of the front court guys. So I think it'll be Tobias on Mobley and then Duren on Allen. So Asar on Mitchell, Cade on Harden, and then Duncan Wade from there.
Yeah, I agree. That's how I would do it too. And with Cade on Harden, I know that the concern is the free throws, right? Like if Cade's going to get into foul trouble, that means you can't play him as much. That'd be a big problem for Detroit. And that's absolutely true. The only thing I'd want to say is, Cade did just spend a significant amount of time guarding Paolo Banchero, a fantastic foul drawer, Desmond Bane, a fantastic foul drawer. And while Cade did have a couple games in round one where he was in a bit of foul trouble, it wasn't so significant that he was losing minutes to it. So I think that you could feel optimistic, we'll put it that way, that Harden's not going to be able to get Cade into as much foul trouble as maybe the fear would be. All right, let's this is a fun one. So this is from Jacob Ball. If you exclude the 3 Pistons championship series, where does this victory rank among all-time playoff series wins for the Pistons? It's got to be kind of up there, right?
Oh gosh, I mean, like obviously for us, I feel like it's because we simply don't have.
Hey, we're not old enough for this question, and we can't say that a lot. I mean, we're getting older, Blake. Here
our childhood was the going to work era. So we saw a ton of series wins. We saw a ton of okay, I'm just gonna, without like looking up anything, I just have to put this one up there because like what I remember from the going to work era, other than the championship, is the losses. Like it's everything else like sort of blends in for me. Like Robert Ory's shot is ingrained in my brain, and that's like
Booby Gibson ending their season for some reason.
Yeah, the LeBron game. Like, I probably just have, I probably remember the losses more than I remember the championship, honestly. So, like,
I do too.
I think when, obviously, as you grow, and there was such a long drought in between playoff wins, it makes this one a bit more special. And then you come back. Like, I think the only other one that you could compare this to is when they did the same thing against the Magic. But, like, I don't know, from that year, I just remember when the season ended, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I mean, I started watching the Pistons like because they won the championship. I was 6 when they won. So when they won, you're a 6-year-old. It's so exciting, right? But I don't remember that season hardly at all. I like vaguely remember the series, but everything after that's really what I remember. So yeah, I'm in the same boat. I just think, unfortunately, we're just not the right person to ask this question to. Maybe this is a Keith Beck Trudeau kind of question on Twitter, because he's got more of that history knowledge than we do. We've only got what we lived through. But I will say, though, just how long the drought was, to finally get the win, a series win, even though it's just in round one. I do think that what it kind of represents has to rank. I'm with you. It's probably got to rank pretty high. All right, we got kind of got another kind of fun question. Then we'll get back to previewing the Cavs series here. But this one's from Tony Buckets. DBB comments says, you are both sports podcasters, so you do try to appear neutral, but admit it. You have game day rituals that you believe give the Pistons good luck. So what are they, and do they work? I love this question.
Oh my gosh. This is like making me feel like a bad fan, because I honestly feel like I don't have anything. I'm trying to think of something, but I'm sort of coming up blank a little bit. I'm not very, very okay. I think this is like a common one, so I wish I would have more fun, but I think it's just if the Pistons are coming back, or if they're doing good, just stay in the same spot. Like, you don't need to do anything else. Or if they dig themselves into a hole, you can do something on your end for a little spark, whether it's like, I don't know, getting your favorite drink or snack from the fridge. Like, you never know what'll turn things around. But unfortunately, I don't think I have very many superstitions. It's mainly just more of like a where I am if I'm watching kind of thing.
I am just plainly not superstitious. I will readily admit that I am fully. I'm as weird as I feel like I shouldn't have to. Obviously, we're big Pistons fans. That's why we're doing this podcast. So like, we try to be neutral when we're assessing other teams, but we're certainly biased and rooting for the Pistons, obviously. And the problem, I'm not superstitious. I never really have been. Even back when I was playing basketball, like back in high school, the only thing that I would do that like would border on superstition, I used to name my basketballs. like I'd have one basketball at a time that was my ball. I would name it. I you carry it around everywhere, right? And even when I'd ask people to get the ball, like I'd ask for it by name, right? Like, hand me so and so, right? It was dumb. That was superstitious. But other than that, I'm struggling to really think of anything, even that like I've done in outside of a Pistons context. Even my like free throw routine was just long enough to catch your breath. Like, it wasn't. The routine was to calm. It wasn't necessarily like, this is what I have to do to make the shot. I don't know. I guess I'm boring. I think that's the takeaway here.
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately, as I've gotten older, I've just come to probably the sad realization that nothing I do personally really has an impact on what this team or any team does, which is kind of a little sad, because you like to feel a bit more involved. But no, I just like enjoy it where possible. And I think the only thing I can fall into is like, if things are going well, stay in the same spot. If it's not, maybe mix things up a little bit.
Yeah, you were even talking about going and like grabbing a snack or a drink if things are going poorly. And I was like, I do that too, but it's because I'm sad. It's not because I'm hoping it's going to turn around. It's a terrible coping mechanism. I don't recommend it. Pistons aren't doing well. Grab a beer. That's not what you should do. That's not great. You don't need the alcohol for that. Anyway, I'm sorry, Tony Buckets, that we're both so boring with that one. If you guys, in the comments on DBB or on Spotify or Apple, wherever you're listening, throw in your Piston superstitions. We'd love to hear them. Maybe we could steal them. Maybe we can start to be more superstitious.
Like a lucky.
Yeah, so we got this one here. Usually
stand
up the last 2 minutes. That's a good one.
Yeah,
lucky shirt. Yeah, I like
something
that.
like that.
We got to steal something, Blake. I think we're too boring.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I was hoping you were a little more superstitious than I was.
Unfortunately not. Let's to close this one out. Let's do the official look ahead. What do you see here in this series? Pistons versus Cavs. Who do you think might have an advantage? And then, kind of why? We'll save our predictions for the very, very end of the show.
Yeah, I mean, so I still think it's tough. Like, it's tough to feel incredibly good about this Pistons team after they go into a 3-1 hole and miraculously climb themselves out, but they certainly have momentum on their side. Like, on the other hand, Cleveland won a Game 7 themselves. They have yet to lose a home game this postseason. Luckily, the Pistons have home court advantage, but we've seen them drop that home court advantage. So I do think it's fairly even, but I do think that the Pistons are the more talented team and honestly deeper team, even if we're not seeing JB Bickerstaff like fully use his depth right now just because of how things happen in the playoffs. And I really do think why the Pistons were down 3-1 is because of what Orlando was doing to Jalen Duren. And I think Cleveland will probably try to do the same thing because they saw how it worked and got out to that lead. But like we just talked about, I don't think they'll be able to do it as close to as well just because of their personnel and the type of archetype that their players are. So I think that lends a bit of an advantage to the Pistons. I will say, like, obviously a team that has James Harden and Donovan Mitchell is like going to be tough to keep up with scoring wise at times. So hopefully Tobias Harris can keep doing what he's doing. Cade can keep scoring like he is. I mean, this is a guy who thus far in the playoffs, only Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is scoring more points than Cade Cunningham. So I think even if that wasn't a factor, I think the Pistons have the best player in this series in Cade. Yes, is Cleveland built a little different and have more on-ball threats and shooting and still pretty solid defensively? Yes, but I do think all around the Pistons are the better group and have a slight advantage of this series. But really the swing factors for me will be if Tobias Harris can maybe not be 100% of what he was in Game 7, but continue the momentum he's built. And if Jalen Duren can continue on that momentum that we think he's found as the latter half of the series went on, and specifically in Game 7.
I'm right there with you. I have a uncomfortable amount of confidence going into like I do not like that. I actually feel fairly good about this matchup. I feel better about this matchup after round one than I did before the playoffs began, which I know is really weird to say because the Pistons, like you brought up, they fell down 3-1 to a Magic team. But I feel as though narratively, the Pistons in round one, they stared into the mirror and the mirror punched them in the face. Like their reflection just came out and hit them, right? That's why they went down 3-1. And in order to win that series, they needed to rediscover who they were. They needed to rise above a team that was, kind of doing a mirror image of what they like to do. And they needed to rise above it. They needed to be better than that reflection, right? And they did it. They figured out a way to step up. Tobias Harris steps up. Cade Cunningham looks like a superstar. Jalen Duren continues to progress and kind of find his footing in the playoffs. Whereas the Cavs in their round one, they struggled with a Raptors team who, frankly, tries to be like the Pistons. We actually talked about this when we were very briefly looking at how that play-in tournament might shake out before everything was settled. And we kind of said the Raptors, right, they'd be kind of a tough out there in round one because the Raptors try to be who the Pistons are. The Pistons just do it a little bit better. And so the Cavs, the Raptors showed that you can muck it up. You can slow them down. You can deploy some length and athleticism against their guards. And the Cavs have this terrible tendency of forgetting Evan Mobley exists. They can get kind of baited into that and not leveraging him as an offensive weapon that he actually is. And the Raptors, they go to them into that sort of stuff. And they took that to 7 games. They won every single home game. I know it took a crazy bounce in game 6, but still. And if the Raptors are 80 to 85% of Detroit, and Detroit just, beat their own demons here in round one, I kind of feel like, oddly enough, the Pistons have a little bit more going their way in this series. And then even when you start looking at the matchups, we talked about Jalen Duren. I'm expecting Duren to have a bit of a bounce back. A significant bounce back, I should say. I don't want to undersell. I'm expecting him to look really good here in this series because the Magic were able to pick their poison. They chose to take away Jalen Duren, and they were going to bet that they could beat the field, right? They knew Cade was going to go off, and they bet that they could match that with Paolo and kind of beat the rest of the Pistons with their roster. I don't think that the Cavs can even make the choice. I think that Cade's going to play really well. I think that Duren's going to play really well. And the rest of the roster, hopefully they can continue to play at the level that they have. But the fact that they can't pick their poison even gives me some confidence there too. I don't want to be as confident as I am. This Cavs team's really talented, and stylistically they're very different. But it feels more like the Pistons are going to be able, or at least have the tools on paper, to get the Cavs out of their style, out of the way that they want to play the game of basketball. And the Cavs can't necessarily do that. They don't have the horses to really make the Pistons uncomfortable in the way that the Magic did. I don't know. What are you thinking in terms of the series prediction? I'm still going to say 6 or 7 games, but I'm more confident than that, which gives me great discomfort. Discomfort.
I think Pistons in 6 for me. And like another thing that is, I guess in my head, lean the series toward the Pistons having the advantage is, the Raptors pushed Cleveland to the brink of elimination when Brandon Ingram was pretty much a no-show in the series and then was out toward the end of it. And like, yes, RJ Barrett was great. He had that awesome shot in game 6 to force a game 7. Scotty Barnes was great too. Even Colin Murray Boyles stepped up, and Jamal Shed. But like, so everything we were talking about with Jalen Duren not performing like he did in the regular season, like Cleveland just dealt with that with Brandon Ingram, and that Toronto team doesn't have a scorer like Cade, or a guy who can facilitate an offense like Cade. Like Scotty Barnes can somewhat, and he had a really nice series, but just not on the level that Cade can. So I think if Duren returns to even like 80% of what he was in the regular season, I think the Pistons clearly have an advantage. And then if Tobias Harris can continue doing what he's doing, that's like all the more to it. But I just don't think, like, Brandon Ingram led the Raptors in scoring during the regular season. Cleveland isn't going to limit Cade Cunningham like that. And a lot of that was probably Brandon Ingram's problem. So I don't want to like compare the two players or anything, but I just think the type of player Cade is, and then hopefully the rest of everyone around him either keeping up what they did toward the end of the series or continuing to grow, I think that tips things in the Pistons' favor. So in short, I'm going with Pistons in 6.
I'm going to give the exact same prediction. So I think let's end on this. Okay, let's end on this. It's pretty easy. I think since both of us are, we're picking the Pistons, I think it's pretty easy for us to paint the picture of how this series will look if the Pistons are to win it, right? Cade plays well, Duren plays well. You still get some nice nights out of Tobias Harris, and Asar Thompson's able to really shut down Donovan Mitchell. And, James Harden is playoff James Harden. It's very easy, I think, for us to paint that picture. So let's do this to wrap up the show. If the Cavs win, what went right for them? Like, what do the Cavs need to do in order to win this series?
I think that they just need James Harden and Donovan Mitchell to go off. Like, Donovan Mitchell scored 23 points a game. Harden had 20 in the first round series. Like, honestly, I think they need a little bit more than that, especially out of Mitchell. Mobley was good, but also absent at times. So I really think, like, when they made this deal for James Harden at the trade deadline, they made a statement that this team is really going to live and die by the offense that those two players are producing. And they're still, like, they're not a net negative defensive team because they have Mobley and Allen. But when you have a backcourt of Mitchell and Harden, that just automatically tilts your team toward trying to make things work on offense to win games. And I think that's not always how things go in the playoffs. Like, we certainly saw, and Cade is still able to produce. So, like, I really think even everything with Duren aside, like, if they can do something similar to Orlando, I think the way for Cleveland to win the series is really if they just get even more out of Mitchell and Harden.
To me, I think that if you're a Cavs fan, this needs to be the Evan Mobley series. Honestly, I think Evan Mobley should be the second best player on this team. He's the second most talented player on the Cavs to me. And I'm a big Jarrett Allen fan. I think he had an incredible Game 7 against the Raptors in round 1. Jarrett Allen is a fun basketball player. He's got the ABA afro with the headband too. Like, I love watching him play. I'm a big fan of his. He's a great shot blocker, great roll man, and he's a little underrated as a passer as well. So he's a very good player. But Evan Mobley has all the tools in the world. He blocks shots. He can kind of shoot the ball. He's streaky, but he should be a better shooter. He can put the ball on the floor. He can score on his own. He can switch out on the perimeter. He's nimble. He can move. Like, he can post up. Evan Mobley he's the second most talented player on that Cavs team in my book. And I think if you are a Cavs fan and you're saying, okay, Asar Thompson's the best perimeter defender in the NBA, and he's going to be checking Donovan Mitchell, that is a tough matchup. You figure Donovan's going to get his 20 points, but like, it's going to come difficult. James Harden, Cade Cunningham's a very good defender. You figure he's probably going to get his 18 plus points, but you don't think that it's going to come all that easily. And Jarrett Allen and Jalen Duren, there's maybe even a physical matchup or advantage for Jalen Duren there, even though Jarrett Allen's a little bit taller and a little bit longer. So you think that might be a tough matchup there. But the Pistons shouldn't have an answer for Evan Mobley. I think the realistic answer that you're going to say as a Pistons fan is based off of how Evan Mobley has played this season and all throughout his career so far. Tobias Harris is not actually a bad matchup because he's very physical and he can root Evan Mobley out of his spots and make him uncomfortable. But there's no reason that should be the case. Evan Mobley is too talented for that to be his story. So if Evan Mobley goes off, if Evan Mobley plays like the player he can be, I think that the Cavs are going to go ahead and win this series. That would be my book. So I think we've painted the picture of why we're feeling good about the Pistons. Yeah, and so Richard says Mobley was probably their best player against Toronto. I think in stretches, yes. Not consistently, though.
Yeah, he had an up and down series.
Right. And when he's up, though, he looks like potentially their best player. And I think that's what should, if you're a Cavs fan, that's what would be giving me confidence. If I were a Cavs fan, I would say we've got Evan Mobley. The Pistons don't have anything that should be able to stop him. So if we prioritize him offensively and we really focus on getting him going, I think that that's their key to winning the series. And if Evan Mobley has a great series, I think you may be looking at the Cavs in 6 or 7. So that'd be my swing. I think it comes down to Evan Mobley if you're from the Cavs perspective. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%. And I think Pistons wise to counter that, like Evan Mobley found himself in foul trouble a decent amount of times in that first round series. So I think
you need Jalen Duren to just go through these bigs.
Yeah,
like just get him the ball in the short roll or at the elbow and just tell him to through. Don't go over, don't go around, just shoulder right through the middle and get to the foul line. And he did that in all 4 meetings against the Cavs for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, so I think that's the recipe to stop that. If Evan Mobley starts to pop off consistently for the Cavs, so that's, I think, just the recipe to dwindle that. Hopefully, if that's how the Cavs go about this series and trying to make Evan Mobley the swing factor.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So game 1 predictions. What do you got? Pistons win?
Yeah, I think the Pistons win in a close one. And really not much, I guess, deep dive into that other than the Cavs haven't been good on the road. And I think the Pistons are really going to want to step up and maintain home court after they drop game 1 against Orlando. And also both these teams are on short rest. So we're not like dealing with any of that. And the Cavs played later than the Pistons and they had to travel. So there's that as well. So I don't think there's a huge factor like one team's more rested than the other or anything like that. So Pistons in a close one in game 1 for me.
I'm going to echo the same thing. I think that the Pistons are going to come out forcefully. They learned their lesson. That's what I'm going to say. I think the Pistons learned their lesson from round 1. They know the kind of energy and effort they need to come out with to go steal, or not steal, but to go lock down a game 1 victory that they did not do. They know how they need to play, and I have all the faith in the world that this group's not going to look the way that they did early on in round 1 because they're young and they've now made the adjustment. So I'm expecting the Pistons to come out, and I'm hoping that they come out and put their foot down and you get a solid win here in game 1. But whenever you guys are listening to this one on podcast, game 1 will be over. We will do better in round 2 because you know what? Regardless of the outcome here of round 2, I am more or less a happy camper. I was not going to be happy with the round 1 loss. They made it out of round 1, so they've met my personal playoff expectations. So I am just going to enjoy the ride, and I won't be a mopey, sad host that I would have been if we were recording after the Pistons went down 3-1. So we promise we'll be better this go around. So we'll probably see you sometime next week. But other than that, Blake, we can close out the show.
Oh man, that's easier said than done. If things go wrong to start the series, I know it's easier to promise. Okay. It's easy to fall back into disappointment. So hopefully everyone takes Wes's approach and just like enjoying the rest of the way, because we haven't been here since all of us were a lot younger. But shout out to, just congratulations to everyone who cheers for this team, pays attention in one way or the other. Everyone, I'm assuming, who's listened to this show went through some pretty dark days as Pistons fans and was still following along, and all the crazy eras and random players we love to bring up. So really happy for everyone that we're here now and can think about a run to the Eastern Conference Finals, and you never know what could happen. But shout out to a fella for calling the voice line. Just a reminder that anyone can call that number to ask a question and hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.